So I'm continuing on with my Thinking of Playing series of videos on Rivoli 1797 from SimTac. I'm getting ready to transition from this Thinking of Playing and rules practice to a full play of the basic game. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about my experiences so far with this. So this has been, needless to say, incredibly enjoyable. But to begin with, this is my first, very first experience with this scale, scope, and format of Napoleonic war games. What I mean by that, scale, basically the battalion scale, typical counter representing a battalion, in this case made up of 4 companies, batteries of artillery, leaders. So I've played Napoleonic 20, for example. I played a few games from that series. Not at all this scale, obviously. Much higher scale. Scope, this of course being a battle scope game. So I've played just a tiny bit from the Zucker campaigns series, where you're talking, I don't know, one or a couple days per turn, battles in 2, 3, maybe 4 hexes, if I remember correctly, something like that. But a higher campaign scope. So I played just a tiny bit of that. But this would be my first battle game at this specific scope. And then format, the detailed, uniform, what do you want to call that? Graphic style, with key unit play information on the back. Plain information backsides. So this format, the hand-drawn period map style for map graphics. So this is what I mean by this format. First experience with this. Positive experiences across the board, by the way. So I'll get to that in a minute. So very first step. Now, I guess I've started my 6th year of regular hex and counter tabletop wargaming. And I always, through my first 5 years, I kept pushing Napoleonics off. To me, I knew that Napoleonics games were there. They were always there. I knew I could get to them at a later date. So I knew La Bataille series was out there. I knew the Zucker campaigns, multiple series there, Wars of Napoleon, multiple games, multiple styles over the years. I mean, generations of really Napoleonic war games. I knew that was all there, so I really was in no hurry to get to Napoleonics. I wanted to explore many different historical periods and game types like block games, etc., first. So to me, it was like Napoleonics, it's always there. No rush to get here. But I'm glad I finally tried this. So before I get to what I really liked, I guess I never really explained what I have in front of me. So I bought and actually there are some ambiguities, I guess. I think I have the second edition of Rivoli 1797. So I think I have the second edition. It was a Ziploc edition. It has two of these maps, which correspond roughly to the standard poster-sized map, poster paper quality. Beautiful. Goes without saying, and I don't know. I'm not even sure I'm going to be talking so much about the nice appearance of all the components. I think that's pretty much self-evident. But two maps. Oh gee, I don't know. Actually, it was supposed to be three counter sheets. Yeah, three counter sheets. Basically two counter sheets of units and I guess you say information counters like these. And then there was supposed to be a third counter sheet, which I believe is nothing but black and white information markers, numbers, black and white number markers. I discovered really late. I was halfway through this game practice, this rules practice here, before I realized I was missing that sheet. You don't use those markers in the basic game, so that explains why. Since I started from the very beginning, and when I got it, I did not do didn't do a complete components check, anyways. And then I dove right in with the basic rules. The basic rules don't use the numbered markers, so it was actually only when I took a peek at the full rules that I realized, wait a minute, something missing. So I have enjoyed this so much that I'm not even going to say anything about a missing counter sheet. I just pulled out some numbered counters from a Labatai game. They'll work fine. Only problem is they are slightly smaller. I'm assuming that these are metric dimensions, and the half-inch numbered counters from the Labatai game are slightly smaller. But, I will make do. I will definitely make do. It's been a while since I have enjoyed a game so much that I can completely look past something as glaring as a missing complete counter sheet. But yeah, no doubt have enjoyed this immensely. That I don't even think twice about that. Okay, so three counter sheets. Now you get the battles of the campaigns in Spain and Portugal, Simtac rules in French. Here you get that. You get that rule book. Yeah, I'm missing the counter sheet that I think has just a full counter sheet of those numbered markers. But anyways, so that's the rule book in French, the full rule book. A full, or I should say a complete English translation of that rule book, Battles of the Peninsular War. Simtac's rulebook for tactical simulations of the Napoleonic Age. So this is the full rulebook that I will be getting to at some point, and look forward to getting to. Okay, it says second edition. All right, so the second edition of the game is really key to the second edition of the rules. I was wondering whether the second edition had any component changes. That I don't know the answer to that question. So anyways, here's the full rulebook. I've taken a peek at it. It seems good enough. Yeah. It has 32 pages. Yeah, 32 pages basically of rules, designer notes, additions and clarifications. So that is the full rules. And the full series rules, I should say. And then you get the Battle of Rivoli special rules and historical introduction. So black and white reproduction of the two map sections, making the complete map. You got your special rules, terrain, pontoon bridges, fortifications. So that's, was it 5 pages? Or really, not really. 4 pages of special rules. You get scenario 1, introductory scenario. Scenario 2, historical scenario. And scenario 3, Rivoli Alvinci's battle alternative scenario. Then notes about the unit counters. You get the historical introduction. Nice dense text map. Black and white pictures. So there's a terrain photo, landscape photo. Multiple pages of background. Very nice. Very nice. And then that counter scan. Okay. So that's the battle specific stuff. And then you get the basic rules. Rivoli 1797. Like I said, it's about a dozen pages. Really about 10 pages of rules, actually, about. Okay. And the basic rules, I should point out that these basic rules are not a perfect subset of the main rules. The sequence of play, for example, is entirely different. The basic rules use alternating brigade activations with possible modifications to that sequence, and the full rules use very different. The full rules use what looks like a very traditional Napoleonic game turn sequence with a French player turn complete, followed by an Allied player turn complete. So the player turn broken up into artillery fire, cavalry charge, movement, defensive fire, offensive fire, attack, rally, and orders phase. So pretty traditional I-go-you-go structure there. Very different in the basic rules. Basic rules don't use the strength markers. So units are basically, they are disordered, or disrupted. Sorry, they're disrupted, then they're broken, then they're eliminated. Even the combat mechanic is different. Even the combat mechanic is different. So really, this basic rules is really, these are really two versions. You have a basic rules version. You have the Battles of the Peninsular War version of the rules. When I dove right in, I was thinking and hoping that these basic rules were going to be a subset, so that it would be more of a stepping stone to the full rules. It's still somewhat of a stepping stone because I'm still learning to read the counters, learning to read the terrain, but it's not really a stepping stone in the sense that, as a direct stepping stone, right? So, given that they are so different, I'm really actually chomping at the bit to move to the full rules, but I'm going to hold myself back, and I'm still going to get some more practice with these basic rules. I am having a lot of fun with it, but boy, I have one eye, glancing forward to the full rules with formations, step law. It's really, the two things I'm really looking forward to are full rules for formations and your step losses. So when a unit, has, so like when this Austrian battalion is made up of 5 companies, when it takes losses by company, I'm going to like that type of detail. But anyways, that all in good time, right? All in good time. To gain maximum enjoyment in the long run, I want to enjoy the learning process. And last thing I would want to do is to jump in too far and, I don't know, lose opportunity for some enjoyment. So the basic rules, by the way, are, as I explain these basic rules, especially because they're not even a subset of the main rules, it could be a case where these basic rules are really horrible with glaring omissions, contradictions, so on and so forth. I've seen that before, where it seems like the basic rules of a game were just completely left a mess, because I guess, I don't know, in the design process, it just wasn't, I guess, a priority to clean them up at any point. No, these basic rules are pretty good. Considering only some awkward translation, that aside, I think these basic rules are pretty darn good for, again, for getting a first taste, again, of a Napoleonic battle game at this scale and format. So the basic rules. What can I say? Let me talk about the map. Okay, so it's one of the most I don't know, obvious things to comment on. I really have enjoyed playing on a map like this. Now, I'm not talking at all about the pretty appearance of it, the aesthetics aside. In all honesty, I could play on a map like this that was black and white and hand-drawn, because it has nothing to do with the colors. It is very colorful, and that's nice, but also irrelevant. It's very aesthetically pleasing. Like here, this is very aesthetically pleasing. The hedgerows, the trees, okay, very aesthetically pleasing, again, irrelevant. What I like about it is, even in this small screen view that you have here, you have these tight elevation differences, you have these steep slopes, hedges, woods, and trails. All of this, I don't know what you want to call it. It is variation, but I'll call it this detailed and tight terrain complexity is what I like. Contrast this style with what I think of as the old SPI style, which is like, I consider that to be, the old SPI style I consider to be like battlefields virtually empty of terrain. So like in that old style, this entire view that you're looking at, this knoll would probably not be represented at all. There would probably be one terrain change here, and this would be called high ground, and this would all be low ground, and this would all be probably all be clear, considered clear. And it would be like, even within the screen view that you see, there would probably be 2, maybe 3 terrain, maybe this trail, maybe probably more likely just this road. So you'd have maybe 2 or 3 terrain features of significance, and I just don't like that. I like the terrain detail where you have to figure out how you're going to deploy your forces on complex terrain, how you're going to exploit complex terrain. When you have complex terrain like this, you could move, for example, you could move too far forward given the terrain. You could not anchor a unit's flank given this terrain. When you have some simplified terrain, concepts of like anchoring flanks of units, or maybe brigades. When you have simplified terrain, that's designed out of the equation, and I don't like that. So anyways, it's this terrain complexity that I like. It doesn't have to be, by the way, it doesn't have to be a huge number of different types of terrain. It doesn't have to be 6 different types of woods and 3 different types of crests and so on and so forth. Although I wouldn't necessarily call that a problem, but I'm just saying, even if you have 5, 6, 7, 8 basic types of terrain, you have a lot of it varied even within a small area. Okay, so that's why I'm talking about the map. I like that a lot about this. This makes me study the map. That's what I like. I want a game that makes me study the map. If it's simplified and I can just look at it glancingly and it's like, key terrain is obvious, yeah, that type of simplification I'm not really for. Not really satisfied with that. The counters, the period uniforms really are nice, because if anything, it is nice to kind of pause and actually consider the uniform, I don't know, styles, I guess. But anyways, what was not a problem for me was flipping over to get that key information, and having to flip back over. I mean, you can't, I didn't see that you could leave them flipped over either. But anyways, that was actually not a problem at all. Of course, I was not expecting it to be a problem, but I've heard others consider that a problem, that they have to flip it over to get key information. I didn't really think that. I kind of liked that idea. I mean, if you're not going to have an off-map roster, then this is certainly the next best. The other thing about the units, which this is a huge, probably should stop using that word, but this is what really tells me that I like this game a lot. So what we have here is 2 infantry battalions, and then the light companies for each of these battalions. This is the light company that goes to this battalion. This is the light company that goes to this battalion. On the front, you have 4 6s. Light companies are 1 6s. Okay. 400-man battalions, 6 movement points, movement allowance. Okay. Nothing big, right? I just realized, I hope this is a good example of what I'm talking about. Yep, it is a good example. It is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. And this is what I really, really like. Okay, so yes. So when we look at these numbers, hang on. So this, in a sense, kind of tells me everything I need to know about the game and why I'm going to enjoy it. Well, actually I could not enjoy it, but what I'm getting at is that this game follows my design preferences. Huge advantage. I mean, this right here is, I'm coming to learn that for me, this is like one of the greatest wargaming inventions of all time, the percentile dice. So any game that uses percentile dice, I'm immediately going to be, taking a second look at. So what do we have here? What we have here is the 2 infantry battalions from the same brigade. They both have a combat value of 11 used in, their infantry attack close combat. So that's the same, but their morale is slightly different. This battalion has a 22 morale. This battalion has a 23 morale. Lower the better. So actually 22 and 23 is quite good. Compare that to let's compare that to this is an Austrian pioneer. Okay, here's an Austrian infantry battalion. The Austrian infantry battalion has a morale of 36, which is substantially less, or worse, not less, worse than the French battalions, because you have to roll, I think, equal to or greater to pass your morale check. So 36 versus a 22, quite a big difference. And I should point out that on percentile dice, that difference should be significant. It's funny because it's significant, and yet it does not even, I'm doing quick math here. Yeah. To point out, 22 versus 36 on percentile dice equal to or greater to pass is significant. And yet that doesn't even correspond to exactly, to now I don't have a 6-sided die handy, but that doesn't even correspond to a +1 variation on a 1 die 6. That's the problem with D6. So anyways, even within the same brigade, 2 infantry battalions have a slightly different profile. And that's just great. Because, and here's why it's great. Because in one complete play of the game, as each of these battalions make multiple morale checks, it is entirely, I don't know if it's likely, but it is not unlikely. It is not unlikely that one digit difference, 22 versus 23, will turn out to be significant. This is what I mean. Question is, what do you mean? What do you mean significant? I'm saying when these battalions go into combat, or let's say, a key attack, and this unit has to do a morale check. No, let me get that right. No, yeah, this unit has to do a morale check. By chance. It's not by chance, but as circumstances unfold, you have to do a morale check with this unit, and you roll a 22. Which, if it had just been the other battalion of the same brigade, it would have been a pass, and yet it was a fail. And then what cascading effects happen from that? Of course, with these games, with lots of different actions, mechanics, die rolling, you can have obviously the cascading effects. So that's what I mean by the significance of even 1 digit difference. And then, and even here. So now let's go to the light companies. This light company has a combat value of 3. This one has a combat value of 2. Again, slightly different. They have the same morale as light companies for infantry battalions, but slightly different combat value. And in my little rules practice, again and again and again, I had very close. It's opposed die rolls with modifiers. It's opposed modified die rolls, and over and over and over again, I was having very close final, results comparisons. And so again, 1 digit difference, especially in a full game, can make a difference. And it's one of those things where all these little differences should actually, compound. But even if you can't see that, it's just the memory of, going in for the attack and coming out, going in for an attack and coming up 1 short, when if you had just had another unit that's like 1 or 2 hexes away, probably 1 hex away, it would have made all the difference. And then it's just the memory of the event that's neat. And the likelihood of getting that on a bunch of 6-sided dice is, I mean, obviously it's possible, but I'm not sure it's the same. But anyways, point is, this type of unit individuality and differentiation is an absolute plus as a general design approach. I can't say enough about it. As a general design approach, I think it's great. Combat value, for example, the Austrians having a combat value of 9 versus 11 for the French battalion. That is significant, and yet, probably, interestingly, yeah, there it is. Interestingly, this is significant too. The fact that the Austrian battalion is 6 strength, 6 company strength, which is 50% stronger than the French battalion, and yet, and that is significant. That's not irrelevant, and yet, in practice, that may or may not be balanced, or even countered by the fact that the French have 2 value better close combat value or combat value, and significantly better morale. So all of these little unit differentiations can make combat much more interesting. Yeah. Okay. All right. So going through the rules real quickly. Zones of control. Definitely the basic rules have the 6 adjacent hexes, which is really too simplistic. So there's the optional rule, even for the basic rules, to have front 3 hexes the front, back 3 hexes the rear. So yeah. Sequence of play. Interesting alternating brigade activation, with the French having more flexibility and more flexibility in activating their brigades by division, or activating brigades within the same division. I like that. What else to say? It's interesting how the light companies and the horse artillery have more flexibility in movement and fire. All very interesting. Movement. The only thing really to say about movement is I like hugely. I like the brigade and integrity restriction or rule. So units have to continually move and remain adjacent by brigade. Some units, like light companies, have more. Well, light companies are not bound by this at all, which is nice. Gives them a little extra flexibility, which is interesting. Leaders and headquarters. Interestingly, so far leaders haven't played such a huge role yet, but they should. Yeah, I'll see how leaders play in the next iteration of play. The headquarters, I like this a lot. Headquarters in this game are abstract. They basically represent a center of an area of command control. I like that a lot. So they don't represent the physical location of any headquarters, or members of a headquarters or anything, but they represent, again, the center of a command control area. Like that a lot. And these do not move, freely as players desire. They're actually, there's more than one mechanic involved in trying to get your headquarters to move as you need them to, as you want them to. I like that. You are tracing lines of communication in a basic way, but it's nice. Artillery. It was not easy was not easy. All right, so the general play experience so far was it's not easy to just get your artillery into firing position. Part of that is definitely the complex terrain I've already talked about. So I like the challenge of trying to get the artillery, into the fight, so that they can be effective. I like that. Light troops, I like the whole light troop concept a lot. I'm not sure, I know what I'm doing. Here they are. I'm not sure I've picked up all the nuances of even in the basic rules, the light companies, but I like the ability. Oh, I know what I like. It seems to me, although I could be completely wrong, so far I'm picking up that because of the rules, restrictions, and capabilities of the light companies, they seem to be a bit more important in a defensive sense than an offensive sense, and I like that. I don't think light companies should actually be some type of super offensive tool. So I like that. And it seems to be that the rules are set up so that they are good for, again, in a defensive sense. So when you combined, and this of course is where tactics at this level can get interesting, when you combine defensive and offensive aspects at this scale, even when you're on the offense, you're including aspects of defense in your actions. If the light companies serve this purpose, then I'm really going to like that. Didn't get to the pontoon bridges yet. Morale and cohesion. Well, don't really have an issue with this yet. The basic game again just uses 2 levels. You have these side-specific disrupted markers, and then side-specific broken markers. Oh yeah, the thing if I understand the rules correctly, when a unit loses a cohesion level, well, first of all, you can still fight with disrupted units. You can still fight with disrupted units, but if you want to get them back up to good order, you need to pull them back. And you're not going to be doing that quickly. So the turn that they lose cohesion, they're not going to get to rally, as I understand it. So that means you got to wait till the next turn. In the next turn, you have to, and by the way, it's not mandatory, but if you want to get them, if you want them to recover through rallying, then you're going to have to pull them back. Then you got to successfully rally and then get them back into the fight. So it's not right away, and I like that. I need to get more experience with that, but I like that. It wasn't, well, basically I've been playing, I don't know, at least recently I've been playing games where I don't understand why units, have some type of adverse morale effect, and then they're allowed to rally right away in the same turn. It seems like if they successfully rally in the same turn, then basically the morale loss may have been completely irrelevant. Okay, I know that's a way too vague of a point, but if that's true, I don't like that. If it's true that the rules are set up such that a unit takes an adverse morale result, it's marked, whatever, and then you're rallying in the same turn, and the sequence of play is structured such that there's a high likelihood that their adverse morale state will be irrelevant, then I don't know. I would relook that design approach. Combat firepower is, or I should say musket fire. The procedure is easy enough to remember. Pretty much memorize, I think, with a little bit of practice. The infantry attacks are opposed die rolls. I like that. The modifiers seem to be appropriate. I didn't get to any cavalry attacks yet, but I want to get to that. Victory conditions. Okay. All right, and I didn't get to forming square. I'll get to that when I get to the cavalry. So, bottom line, wow. I have to say, I've joined the camp that says every wargamer should experience. I should say every wargamer should experience a Napoleonic game at this scale, scope, and format. And this, especially playing Simtax basic version of Rivoli, the only one I have. This is a great way to do that. A great way to do what I'm saying. Every wargamer should experience this. Huge fun. Oh, and the next step. I think I don't know whether I'll play all the way through, but I'm definitely going to reset up the entire basic game. And I am definitely going to move through it to continue my practice of the rules and to see how the whole headquarters rules dynamics work when we're dealing with much more than just one division against one division. Definitely looking forward to this. Not sure exactly what term I'd like to use, but this recent play experience just really sucked me in and hugely enjoyable. I'm just really excited to move on to the full basic game, and like I said before, I'm really just chomping at the bit to get to either the full version of this, Battles of the Peninsular War, or the full version maybe of the Marie-Louise rules for a La Bataille game.